each of these innocent Israeli civilians brought home, hundreds of convicted Palestinian terrorists were released from Israeli prisons. 1,968 Palestinian prisoners left on buses headed for the West Bank and Gaza, including 250 security prisoners serving one or more life terms for deadly attacks on Israelis. One of the Palestinians released is Yad Hassan Hussein Fatafta, who brutally attacked Tal Hartuv and her friend Christine Lukin with a machete in 2010, killing Christine and stabbing Tal 18 times until Tal played dead to save her own life. We are joined now by that survivor, Tal Hartuv. And Tal, before we even get into the news of this week, I want you to take me back first to the attack 15 years ago. You were going for a nice Saturday nature outing near Jerusalem with your friend Christine. Walk me through what happened.
Okay, I'll do this part briefly because it's just it gets harder and harder in the last few days to recount it. Um, but yes, I was working as a tour guide and taking my friend, an American Christian, on the Shvil Israel, on the, how do you say it, National Trail. And we were pounced on from behind by two Palestinian terrorists, and they held us at machete point for half an hour. Then they tied our hands up behind our back and they gagged us, put us on our knees, said that Allahu Akbar. And they started bludgeoning us with these machetes. And I'm on my side, laying on the ground, and he's just plunging this thing into me. And I can hear my bones crunch. And the only thing I knew to do was to play dead. And I made a very difficult choice. To save my life, I kept my eyes open as if to be dead, and I watched my friend chopped up before me like a cucumber. And after, like you said, 18 stabs, it's like such an understatement, but they left, and somehow I just wanted to get up and die nearer where I parked the car so the police could find my body. And after a great struggle, I managed to stand and gagged, bound barefoot. I walk over a mile, and I had 18 machete wounds, over 30 broken bones, snapped ribs, crushed sternum, collapsed lung, dislocated shoulder, splinters in my lungs, and a sliced diaphragm. And due to me nicking one very lightly with a penknife, his blood was on my sleeve, and the police apprehended them. And when I was in the court case with them 11 months later, I remember the judge, he looked at them and he said, "But why did you murder an American Christian?" And they sniggered, and like two little boys, and they said, "Oh, we thought she was Jewish." And they were sentenced. Um, and one of these savages is released now.
Tal, as difficult as it is to even hear the details of this, I can only imagine how difficult it is for you to share these details, especially given the news of this week. What did you think? What went through your mind when you found out that your terrorist was being released? How did you even find out in the first place?
Well, thank you for asking me that, because I am in a lot of pain emotionally about this. I was just watching your previous article, which is very beautiful, about the hostages coming home. And one of the parents said, our broken hearts are whole again. And I thought, that's so interesting, because my heart's broken again.
Mm.
And, and how I found out on Google. I mean, I know you have a very wide viewership, and I can be a very forgiving person for small things. But I haven't, nobody told me. I haven't had one phone call from one government official. And I find that really outrageous and very hurtful. And it would really alleviate my pain if somebody could just give me a call. And of course, what was incurred in that, when I found out by myself, is, of course, I just assumed that the Americans or somebody had told my friend's parents, she's an American. And Christine's identical twin sister, she texted me when she saw my social media that they were out. She had no idea. And that meant also her parents had no idea. So it's messy generally, the whole deal. But for someone like myself and Christine's family, it's been extra painful.
Tal, what message then do you believe that this release sends to future terrorists and also to families of terror victims like yours and like Christine's?
Look, we're all Israelis, right? So, and we have a very much more complex way of life here. And it's not linear. We live in tension, uh, philosophical tension. So even from the Bible, when it says there's a time for joy and a time to weep, that's this time. We are weeping and in joy at the same time. So we have to manage that tension. So what message does it send? I mean, we have to understand, because the terrorists say themselves, right, that they are going to murder again. So the same people who were happy about the hostages coming home, and I'm there. I was crying. I was so happy. But we have to be really realistic about this and understand that some of us who are celebrating will be murdered by these terrorists. I don't believe we should negotiate with terrorists ever. And I found myself wondering, how on earth have we got to this situation? We fought a very, very bloody, hard war. And we get to the end, and now we're like, oh, we're going to release the terrorists. Now, I don't actually think the blame is on our Prime Minister or President Trump. Where I do lay the blame is the Western governments and the Western media, and I'll tell you why. If you remember, on October the 7th, there was so much solidarity, and they were projecting Israeli flags on civic buildings throughout Europe and Australia and Canada. And that's what we call a window of time in Israel. Um, Basically, people love dead Jews and get very sentimental when Jews have been murdered. But that window of time was closed pretty much a few days later. And what the media did, and I mean like the far left Hamas mouthpiece BBC and the far left Sky News and the far left CNN, and we should call them by that, is that they began to interview and platform the other side, this whataboutism. And then they took their information only from Hamas when people are killed in Gaza. And so they were propagating lies. They had this moral abandonment of Israel, which was an extremely righteous war. You know what they did, what these savages did on October the 7th? They crossed, they trampled on like a divine line drawn in the sand. And the government
And
policy is outrageous, just outrageous. Ambiguity, free Palestine, allowing for marches, and then ultimately a barbaric declaration of a state of Palestine. And I blame the
Tal
media and
Hartuv, thank you so much. I'm so sorry we have to go out for a break, but